Thank you, Ali. My goodness, you asked me to follow Greta. I wasn't given warning of that. Let me share my slideshow from the beginning and get on with things here. So I'm talking today about, I didn't share. Pause a minute. Share. Let's do this properly. I should know these things by now. There we go. We're talking today about the economics of kindness, but applied to farming. So there's a lot of stuff I will not be covering around the wider transformation of the economy. So specifically today, we're talking food and farming. And the question, what would it take to build a truly resilient local food system? And my context for this is the 2020s is the most crucial decade in the history of our civilization. That's my personal belief and why I commit everything I'm doing. Can we grow the food we need using organic regenerative farming? And do you want to double food production? If so, return the land to the small farmers where you get greater productivity and more food. If you look at the side-by-side trials that the Rhode Island Institute has done of organic and conventional farming, there is no overall loss of yield. Fewer greenhouse gases, there's less energy used, but there's not less food. So at La Ferme de Quatre-Temps on Quebec, they have an 8-acre bio-intensive organic vegetable market garden. They did get generous capital investment to sort of build this as a trial farm, but they're getting $100,000 in crop value for each acre and a profit margin of 40% after cost, generating $40,000 per acre in profit. Jean-Martin Fortier has 12 workers who work there as an average of just 1.5 workers per acre. His secret is land, capital, organic farming skills, and business skills. And he's written a book on the market called The Market Gardener, so that people I know are using this as their Bible to follow his methods, part of which is don't disturb the soil. He's also using Elliot Coleman's guide to the 4-season harvest. Elliot Coleman is coming from either Maine or northern Vermont, I forget which it is, and the winter harvest handbook. So this is not just a thing for British Columbia. This you can do in cold climates. Similarly, at La Ferme de Bec-sur-Loing in Normandy, in France, we have Perrine and Charles Herguillet are growing abundance of food on a 1/4 acre. They have just a 1/4 acre. They're using organic, bio-intensive, permacultural, regenerative methods. No machinery except hand tools and a horse. $84,000 gross sales per year. Take-home profit after expenses of $29,000 a year. 43 hours work a week. 4 weeks vacation pay per year. Carbon sequestration 6 times greater than it is in a forest. And this is all proven, tracked, solid over that 1/4 acre. And that's the kind of way they're growing. You get greater intensity. Anyone who's worked on an organic farm knows that the small scale leads to greater use of the soil. They're inspired too by Elliot Coleman, but also by the 19th century maraîchères parisiennes, the market gardeners from Paris in the 19th century, when Paris itself was self-sufficient in food. The average French farm of 120 hectares generates 1 job. La Ferme du Bec-sur-Loing generates 3 jobs per hectare, or 360 times more jobs per hectare and far more food. Perrine says, you won't get rich in money, but you'll get rich in food, jobs, quality of life, climate, community, soil, and biodiversity. So a profitable organic farming business model does exist. We just need to ramp it up 10-fold, 100-fold. One of the pieces I've not got time to go into is how do we get access to the land for would-be farmers, especially young people in their 20s and 30s. And on my original slideshow, this talk is a much reduced presentation from the larger one, which is referenced in the YouTube chat on farm villages, which I have not got time to go into now. In the context of the climate emergency, agriculture, as said earlier, is producing 1/4 of all our emissions, and meat and dairy are producing 16%, the same as all the world's transportation. It's also causing a big part of the biodiversity collapse and the collapse of insects because of agro-industrial farming, chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers. It's part of causing the ecological overshoot that we're all suffering around the planet from burning fossil fuels and agro-industrial farming. 1/3 of our soil has become acutely degraded because of agro-industrial farming. We have only 60 years of farming left if we continue with this kind of soil degradation, because it takes so long to generate, soil. Just to let that register is like stomach turning daunting, and the impulse to change should be stronger in all of us because of this reality. The meat industry is being blamed for the largest ever dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico and other parts of the world, where the pollutions are pouring off not just the meat industry, but also from fertilizer use on the land, chemical fertilizers. And on top of that, it's not even working. 1 in 8 households in Canada struggle to feed their families. So it's generating inequality and anger and distress. So let me put this clearly. Capitalism is not an economic system. It is a cultural system based on self-interested values expressed in the economy through the use of capital. It's not the system we've got to change, it's the values which lead to the system. Capitalism's bankers and CEOs are following a rule book which says money matters more than food. They want to return a profit to their shareholders, whether they do it in forestry or food or fisheries or gambling. They don't care, they just want to produce money. Capitalist farming is therefore destroying soil, ecosystems, biodiversity, water resilience, carbon storage, farmers' incomes, and rural communities. We've got to change it. GDP under the current paradigm stands for gross depletion of the planet. And it should be GPP, gross progress of the planet. That's what we should be measuring. So in the North American context, one piece that's not often looked about is domination by giant multinational corporations. Since 1990, the giant corporations supply farm inputs and services have left farmers with just 5% of farm revenues, causing farm debt to nearly double to 106 billion since 2000. Between 1985 and 2016, transnational agribusinesses were the primary recipients of US farm revenues, capturing 98% of total farm revenues. 2018 saw the lowest realized net farmer incomes for Canadian farmers in 12 years and a 40% decrease since 2017. The supermarket's markup on food, meanwhile, rose from 18% in 1980 to 67% in 2018. In 2005, Safeway took $2.5 billion in vendor allowances, which is the food suppliers, and the vendors are now paying the farmers and the food suppliers $30,000 per product for shelf space. They're being bribed, they're being coerced by the supermarkets because the supermarkets have such a monopoly on food distribution. Since 1995, the number of independent organic food processing companies in America has fallen from 81 to just 15 as the big corporations take them over. We need, in response, a 10-year transition to regenerative organic farming, whereby, instead of competing with nature, we partner with nature. Instead of disturbing soil, we protect soil. Instead of monoculture, we have diversity. Instead of reductionist thinking, we have holistic thinking. We are, current agriculture is burying the soil, losing carbon. Regenerative agriculture covers the soil, cover crops, stores carbon, builds soil. Conventional farming has collapsing soil, collapsing carbon, collapsing farm income, collapsing biodiversity, multiple negative impacts. Healthy, regenerative organic farming is restoring the soil, restoring carbon, restoring farm incomes, restoring biodiversity, and multiple positive impacts. To achieve this, we need leadership at 2 levels. We need government leadership from the Premier and the Cabinet and the Minister of Agriculture. And we know that that will never happen without the second kind of leadership, which is, and you all know the answer, community leadership from the bottom, from us, we, ourselves. In this 10-year transition, we need to have, to get it going, a food resilience and sustainability task force in each province, an overarching regenerative food policy, and legally binding targets for regenerative farming and local food production, etc. We need a tax on pesticides, giving 100% of the income to support growers as they do the transition to organic regenerative farming and rebuild the soil, which takes 4 to 5 years. We need a tax on high fructose, etc. foods, high fats, salt and sugar. We need a tax on food advertising with exemptions for sustainable foods. We need ecological land value taxation with income and property tax reductions for regenerative methods of farming to speed the transition. And we need food procurement policies to get healthy local organic food into universities, schools, hospitals, prisons, seniors' cares, etc. We need to make this transition off meat and dairy, because as you know, it's right now 23% of all global freshwater, 14 pipes, so I'd say 16% of greenhouse gas emissions, a third of all arable land, and 45% of direct land, which is 88% of all land, taken up with livestock. To support this from a bottom up, we need a cooperative food economy. And to give you context here, let me compare British Columbia in this instance to Finland, similar population. Finland, which has the world's most cooperative economy, has 5,500 cooperatives. 84% of adult Finns are members of at least one co-op. 17% of Finns work for a co-op. Finnish agricultural cooperatives have a market share of 90%, 7% milk, 80% meat, which of course we want to discourage, another story. Consumer cooperatives supply 45% of people's daily food needs. So British Columbia, 5.1 million, just 72 agricultural and food cooperatives. So we need to have regional growers cooperative in every regional district, Ontario, Manitoba, British Columbia, throughout Canada, one for each regional district. That growers cooperative, every farmer is encouraged to become a member. Their fees then support a slew of activities going from the top clockwise: farming skills, mentors, shared processing, shared seed security, CSA distribution, research development, shared lobbying, cooperative groceries. All this stuff can be achieved when farmers work together through a cooperative. Give them incredible extra strength and support. We need money as well. In Nova Scotia, provincial equity tax credits focused on community benefit have inspired people to invest 100 million in 76 projects through their Community Economic Development Investment Fund, including in food. Every province needs to do what Nova Scotia is doing and allow community money, our money, to support investments in the new food economy. We also need a fair trade code of conduct for retailers. John Steinman's book, Grocery Story, is a strongly recommended book. He's really done his homework. It may seem to be about food crops, but it's really about the power of the supermarkets and how food crops and other measures can counteract that monopolistic, manipulative power. We need a retail code of conduct legally at the provincial level to prevent monopoly abuse by the big superstores. And then at the bottom up, we need community food hubs with wide membership throughout the community, doing all the local stuff, clockwise again, transforming food banks into community food learning centers, having community food festivals, CD Saturdays, community allotments, left-hand side, community root cellars, juice presses, tools libraries, Dig for Victory campaigns, Ecology One and farmland education in all schools, community food social enterprises, and at the bottom, welfare work and income policies to address food poverty and insecurity. If we work together, we can do this. Why do we do it? The key groups meet together, decide on the top priorities, turn them into a manifesto, get 100,000 people to sign on, and besiege every politician. It's a province-wide thing more than a federal thing. It's up to us. We dream it, then we plan it, and we do it. If you're an observer, you can choose to be optimistic or pessimistic, but if you're a player, you're either determined or defeated. And that's, to me, the only game in town. That's my book, my novel set in the future, which describes what all this stuff looks like when we put it into practice. You can find it online anywhere. And that's my website, thepracticalutopian.ca, and I'm done. Thank you very much. I shall stop sharing.